Hey everybody, welcome to the Wells Leadership Podcast. My name is Jerry Shaffer. I'm the lead pastor here at the Well, and we're so thankful that you're taking a couple minutes today just to consider some leadership principles that we can apply to our life as it pertains to our ministry, our groups, our teams, but also to our families and even to the areas of our life that don't strike us as much as being sacred. But the truth is, God is interested in us growing and achieving in every area of our life. So I thought here at the end of 2024, we could think about the idea of finishing strong to make sure that we don't forfeit a single day or week in the closing time that we have left in this year, but we really lean in on our goals, on our hopes, on the projects that we're working on to make sure that we're able to get everything out of them in this year that God had intended. I think one of the best pictures of this, one of the best stories to sort of feather out this leadership principle is found in the book of Nehemiah. Nehemiah is one of the Old Testament history books, and it comes to us from about 500 BC. It's the time after the exile. The nation of Israel has been allowed by the Persian leadership to begin making their way out of all the places that they had been dispersed in the Middle East and to begin to make their way back into the Promised Land. They've begun the work of reconstituting their tribes, their faith. They've rebuilt the temple, but the thing that they hadn't really done was secure Jerusalem. And so Nehemiah, who was a Jewish man by birth and by faith, but was serving in the Persian court, finds out that this shame, this disgrace on the nation of Israel still exists. And he goes before the king to ask if he can rectify it, that if he would be allowed to go back and re-secure their capital city of Jerusalem by rebuilding the wall. Now, Nehemiah assumed that he would run into obstacles. He assumed it wouldn't be easy, but he didn't really know what was in store for him. Once he got there, the surrounding nations and the surrounding political leaders immediately began to criticize and resist them being able to re-secure the city of Jerusalem. They threw out the specter of failure and how they would look even more ridiculous than they did now. They tried all kinds of political maneuvering to get Nehemiah's work or his position or his reputation destroyed. They tried character assassination in all forms of different ways, and they even threatened open warfare. In fact, the threat of real attack became so egregious that all of the people working on the project took to wearing their weapons when they were going to bed, when they were eating meals, even when they were doing other forms of work like building the wall. And in the end, they even threatened Nehemiah's life. But it wasn't just the threats and the challenges that Nehemiah faced externally that he had to deal with. He was dealing with all kinds of internal pressures within the nation and the people of Israel at the same time. As they began the work on the wall, people weren't able to do as much work in the fields and in their homes as they had been, not to mention the fact that more and more people were moving into Jerusalem to assist with the work, and it immediately created shortages of food. Not only that, but there was a decent tax that was being levied against the people at first, because it was what was done in all of the Persian provinces, but it also went to help take care of the king's projects, like rebuilding the wall. But all of that put a strain on the local economy. And so people began needing to get loans against their home, against their crops, against future crops. And the people who had money or were in leadership immediately began to exploit the Jewish people. Families got so desperate in order to meet their needs, they literally began selling their children into slavery. And then they struggled with this idea of compromise. Well, so Nehemiah, he's fighting what's happening internally with the nation of Israel. He's fighting externally all the pressures of the surrounding nations, but he doesn't give up. Each time he was faced with a new obstacle, he went to the Lord, he leaned into his leadership, and they found ways around them. And in Nehemiah chapter 6, verse 15, it says, "So on October 2nd, the wall was finished, just 50 2 days after they had begun. And when our enemies and the surrounding nations heard about it, well, they were frightened and humiliated because they realized that this work had been done with the help of the Lord. And so here's what I want to encourage you. Sometimes you think, I've only got 50 days, I've only got 30 days, whatever time frame you're looking at, and you're thinking, it's just not enough time to get something done. Well, here's the promise that God is working on your behalf, that in our weakness, His strength is made perfect. And so I want to encourage you, no matter how insurmountable something may seem right now to you, no matter how many obstacles you're facing, whether they're external or internal, don't give up. Let's finish this year strong. Let's finish our group strong. Let's finish with our team strong. Let's finish those projects at work or whatever it is that we're working on. Let's finish strong and really set ourselves up in 2025 to have a groundbreaking, miraculous year, and allow the other people who are in orbit, in proximity to our lives, see what God is able to do through His people as they lean in and trust Him. And we have this promise from the Apostle Paul when he was writing to the churches of the region of Turkey in Galatia. In Galatians chapter 6, verse 7, it says, "Don't be misled. You cannot mock the justice of God. You will always harvest exactly what you plant." Now, what he's saying is you can't violate the principles of God. You can't, the things that God has set in motion, the things that God has said, no one is going to find ways around them or over them or on them. You can trust them. You can trust the Lord. You can trust His ways. You can trust the thing He said. So verse 9, so don't get tired of doing what's good. Don't get tired of doing what's right. Don't get tired of working hard. Don't get tired of leaning in, because at just the right time, we'll reap a harvest of blessings if we don't give up. So I don't know what you're facing today, but I know that we're all facing the same time crunch. And I just want to encourage you in the closing days of 2024, let's finish strong. Well, thanks so much for giving me just a couple minutes to encourage you, challenge you in your faith and in your leadership. I trust that God is doing something in you. If you have any questions, you can reach out to us anytime here at the Well. The number here is 630-262-1083, or you could just swing by, or you can email me directly, jerry@cometothewell.org. We look forward to seeing you and hearing from you really soon, and we trust that God is doing amazing things in your life.